talking about Beast of Burden today. Perfect segue.
Smooth.
Speaking of pure evil.
Jill Thompson. So, Beast of Burden, this is a mystery supernatural adventure series following a group of dogs and a cat getting into all types of shenanigans and hijinks involving zombies, witches, weird rats, a plethora of things that we encounter in our everyday lives, of course. Very relatable.
Puppy poltergeists.
Poltergeists, of course. You can't forget those.
Oh.
So I didn't think this was going to be quite a Halloween appropriate book, but it turned out to be more than I anticipated. Very grateful for this, and I was grateful for my coworker for suggesting this to be our book that we're discussing. With that said, as we always start out, I want to hear everyone's perspective on the book, and I'm going to start with Jolie, considering your reaction when I announced the title last session.
It's not a 10. It's more like a 7 or an 8. And I give it that because while you can feel the enthusiasm that the artist and the writer have, there's just something that's a little disconnected about the painting that makes it kind of hard to read. I don't know. But I still really enjoy it. I don't know what it is. In like a guilty pleasure kind of way. Yeah. It makes me excited. I follow Jill Thompson, so that's what brought me to this book, was her paintings. And then I read it and I really enjoyed it because I didn't mind the dialogue. I mean, the pug is kind of over the top in a Michael Shalhoub kind of way. Tony Shalhoub, Michael Chiklis kind of way. Yeah, just like primetime procedural cop speaker. Like that's the kind of voice I hear for this pug, and I was like, oh, that's kind of typical. Every pug has to have that voice. Okay. I like the dialogue and I like the art, but I don't think they work together. So 7.5.
Okay. So we're going to discuss that because I think that's a really important point because I want to see if the tone is consistent throughout the book. With that said, let's move on to Mike. What was your opinion overall on Beast of Burden?
It was actually a lot better than I thought it would be. I mean, I was looking forward to it, but I guess I don't know much about Jill Thompson, but the artwork I thought was incredible. But as I got towards the end of the book, I think I really noticed, which was there was something with the art that wasn't clicking. But I don't know if Jolie, if you're saying it was the storytelling, but for me it was more. I feel like she's an incredible painter, but not quite as good a drawer, like penciler, because like they're two different things, right? But her painting is incredible. Her choice of color is incredible. Her penciling is good, but not spectacular. But I'd still give it at least an 8 out of 10 because it was a great, it was great art. The writing again was like a 7 or 8 out of 10. It was just it was one of those ideas where you go, why did no one ever think about this? Like, why did no one think of this before? And now that you see it, you're like, yeah, this is genius. This is great, right? And yeah, I don't know. Like, I really enjoyed every story. I'm assuming we're going to go talk about different chapters, and there was some I enjoyed more than others. Some were really good that I hope we'll talk about later. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really good book.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Mike. And Alicia, what was your thoughts overall on Beast of Burden?
I really, really liked it. I think like Jolie said, it's kind of a guilty pleasure kind of way. Like when you find that one good romance novel that hits all the right notes. It's corny as hell, but it's still just really enjoyable. The art was just very beautiful. I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. There were some things like I feel like some of it, like a dog and his boy particularly, I feel like they could have just gone a little further with it, but they didn't. And yeah. And there were a couple chapters that were like that. The one that was, I think, perfection to me was the chapter with the mother dog Hazel, I think, and her puppies.
Lost.
That one was as sad as it was. I think it's because it made me feel something that I was like, no, this one just hits all the right notes all the way across. Yeah. So yeah, I think an 8 or a 9 out of 10 for me as well. Yeah.
Very good. So, going into a book like this, it's not a complete graphic novel being a contained story. It's a serialized series of different stories collected together in this volume. I believe there's 2 other volumes that collect the entire series. Because of that, I find reading these types of collections can be a little bit disorienting at times because you're left sometimes without resolution, or sometimes you're brought right into a story and you're not sure exactly what's happening. We're fortunate because we read the first volume of this, so we pretty much got to see the inception of this idea, which was originally a couple of short comic strips and comic tales before it was developed into a full-blown monthly series. Did you notice any difference between the tone or the art style from the very early stories compared to what would happen later on with the collected issues?
Yeah.
I didn't, but you did.
They were
Julie?
more, yeah. I would say that it was like a lighter fare. It was still like when you flip through Frey. I mean, you are kind of are just hanging out with the animals. Was it a boy and his dog that was introduced in Dark Horse Presents? I can't remember. I think it said it in the back.
There's like a dog and his boy is from the Dark Horse Book of Monsters.
Got it. Okay. So that's how you started off. That one was super good. So it's weird that that's sort of the one that was in a preview situation, because and maybe he decided, maybe like Evan Dorkin decided he was like the Order later on, but like the stuff with the witches and the coven and all the familiars, that seems like kind of like lighter horror. Like a dipping your toes in kind of horror, because you get the weird like fleshy bug-eaten sort of paintings and you go, oh, okay, this is not, these are not going to be cartoons. And then it goes into the zombie dogs and you're like, oh shit, like this book means business. Like, look at he's so funny. Stray. Anyway, and then it gets dark. So I don't know. The tone is inconsistent throughout, because the one about the big frogs was not as creepy. It kind of went, yeah.
The one with the big frogs and the one at the end with those golem creatures. Those two to me are more like kind of trashy horror, like cheesy horror, where the one with the werewolf, the ones with the ghost puppies, the one with the the rats, that was a little more like horror. I don't know.
Yeah, like if this was X-Files and there was like a myth arc and like your monster of the weeks, like the witches would be monster of the week, but like the big frog and the golems, I feel like they're connected and maybe they're part of the myth arc. That's my guess.
Yeah, well, I'll just say I think the frog one and the last one were probably my least favorite, because they were too much like just monsters. Whereas I like the haunting, like I like the haunted doghouse. Yeah. I liked the puppies in the stream. That was the best one, probably, or one of the best. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of going through them all to try and remember which one's which, but.
Well, let's go through them one by one, and maybe we can give our individual thoughts on each chapter or segment.
Yeah.
Just before we get to that, I just want to say overall, I feel there was a difference. I feel early on with stories like Stray or Unfamiliar, I could kind of see this ending up as something like a child-friendly narrative. In spite of some language being used, it could be very ambiguous as for who the audience was. By the time we got to A Boy and His Dog and then some of the proper issues, like Jolie said, it got really dark. I was not prepared for the amount of viscera in this, that's for sure.
Yes.
So, yeah, I did notice, at least in a sense of a tonal change. That was a huge thing for me.
I mean,
But let's talk
viscera,
about...
like,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And no, you said viscera, and I was like, let's be clear, it's animal and human. Like, that's crazy. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Well, let's just go through it chapter by chapter or segment by segment, giving our thoughts. The opening story was Stray. This was the first ever introduction of the Beast of Burden, of this great pack of animals, with a story about a haunted doghouse, of all things. What were your thoughts about this?
I enjoyed it. It was so
it.
cute. It was just really, really simple, really cut and dry. And it's, again, it's one of those that kind of hits all the right notes. It may be a little bit cheesy and corny, but it's a little bit guilty pleasure. Like, I thought it was really cute.
Super fun. Because it's like, who else would haunt a doghouse but a dog?
Yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was just perfect, you know? The tone was perfect. The characters, like, the art was really good. So yeah.
It's like, it kind of sets you up for the rest of the stories, where it's just like there's just everything has this like a strange origin or background, because it's like this dog is haunting this house because somebody hit him and just buried him. Yeah, like a drunk driver hit him and just buried him, and he just never could go home. And it's like sad, like melancholy and sad. But who we have here? Jack. Is Stray the orange cat?
No, Orphan is the orange cat.
That's an Orphan. So Orphan and Jack get to snuggle up, and that's cute.
It was so cute.
It's so good. Yeah.
And with that, again, I think with the tone, I was feeling, in spite of some of the language, this could be something that would appeal to maybe older children.
Yeah.
It reminded me of those cat novels. Did anyone ever read those? Warriors, I think.
Warriors, yes.
They were called. Yeah, it reminded me of those a little bit.
Oh, I did not read those.
Yeah, that's another thing. As I was reading, I was like, yeah, this would be perfect for teenagers, but the language does cross the line a little bit. So if this, I believe it's being adapted into a film, right?
Really?
Yeah, so it's like, it makes me think, well, you know what? If they go back to reprint it, they should clean up the language. Like, I don't care about this whole thing with censorship. It's like, know your audience, you know? And just...
I read way worse as a teenager, though. I read way worse.
Oh, of course.
I don't know. I think it's okay for teenagers because I read worse.
Oh, yeah.
Where do they swear?
Pugsy's the one who swears the most.
Oh.
Well, they say... I don't think they say anything worse than...
Hell and damn?
They don't say fuck or shit, but they come close to it.
God damn it.
Oh, go hump yourself. Go hump yourself. Mother
that was hilarious.
They say mother humper. No, it is funny, but I just...
He pissed himself. That's another line that the pug says.
Okay, yeah. Like, if they make this into a movie, I guarantee they'll take that out, but maybe I'm wrong.
They could just make all the dogs... Give all the dogs British voice actors. And then, like, just pass by the censors using British slang.
They might make the pug the annoying comedic distraction character, so they might just distort him even further to be even more annoying and in your face.
It'll be voiced by Michael Chiklis.
Oh, perfect. There we are. Let's talk about the next story, The Unfamiliar, which is probably better known as the dogs in an episode of Sabrina, because it involves a coven, witches, sacrificing, murder, all that fun stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
I didn't think so. At the beginning of that little story, I think one of the ladies was holding a pamphlet or something, and I thought, like, oh, they're just selling Avon, or they're getting together for like those cutlery parties or those candle parties, you know. Like, I thought that, and then they'd burst in like oh, you foul demons, but then the ladies are just sitting around smelling candles or something, like a Scentsy party, but then it didn't, and I was so taken aback because I didn't think, like you said, that first story really sets you up for some light and fluffiness, and then it was not, but I thought it was a really great setup for things that happen later in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Joey.
No, it's okay.
I was just going to say, the only thing that threw me off a little bit is that they were investigating, these are human witches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, nah, they should keep it just to animals. That's the only thing that irked me a little bit. I just didn't think that was what I expected, at least, you know? But that's just a matter of opinion. But I did like it, though.
Oh, they kept it on the sideline with the animals. Like, what is it? Oh, they send in one of their one of the beasts of burden goes in disguise, except for he's sitting on the circle of salt and breaks the circle and causes the demon Sukhmet to swallow everyone into a vortex, including the witches. Like, that's crazy. They're like, whoops. So it's like, okay, cool. It sets you up for, I guess, the what? There's a big cheese sort of dog that like can do witchcraft and incantations.
Like the old wise dog, right?
That's it. The wise dog, yeah.
And we get two wise dogs, actually, but we'll get to her. I think she might actually be in the next story or the one after. Because the next one is Let Sleeping Dogs Lie, a.k.a. Pet Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
That was really good.
I'm going to say this. I was not prepared because in spite of some of the language used by the animals, I thought this would be something for teens. Oh my God. Seeing the blood and the guts, and I use the term viscera, this changed it for me. And I think maybe Thompson and Dorkin decided at this point, we're going to change the tone. No parent is going to pick up this book for their kid thinking it's light, fluffy fare. This is what the book is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, and that final panel, seeing all the bodies at the bottom of that river and slowly looking at them and realizing what each one meant. Oh my God. I didn't even... It reminded me of those death comics that you see on Facebook where death is going and saving the animal or taking the animal's souls to heaven, and it's like a public awareness thing. Have you guys seen those ones?
No.
I don't think so, no.
It got really big during the Australia fires because they had death walking through Australia and seeing all the souls of the kangaroos and stuff, and then there's like a little thing at the end saying the wildfires in Australia are burning and this many animals have died and you can help by doing this, you know. I think it's called Friendly Death if you want to look it up. Friendly Death comic or something. I'm surprised you guys haven't read it. Like there's another one. It's again, they're very sad. Like there's another one where a mother bird is feeding plastic to her baby birds and the baby birds are dying because that's what's happening in real life. Like they really, the artist of this comic really brings to light a lot of the issues surrounding the environment and animals today. But anyway, that aside, so that really reminded me of this.
Well, something else to look forward to if we ever want to be utterly depressed, we can read that.
I'll definitely share the Facebook page with the group, so you guys, but like tread lightly, like maybe read one a week. Don't go and read them all at once.
Good advice. Thank you. Also, this is the first time we saw a recurring character outside of the actual Beast of Burden pack, where we saw I think it's Dimphna, who is the witch's familiar. She returns, and then we have the idea that she's going to be a recurring character.
Yeah. I like her.
They pretend, or they set you up thinking that she got busted with all the rest of those zombie dogs. Gross. But yeah. Oof.
Oh, wait,
great ending.
My bad. Is Let Sleeping Dogs Lie the one with the puppies, or is that the one... That's with the zombie dogs then, isn't it?
That's the zombie dog one, yeah.
Oh, that was my bad. I'm talking about a different one. But yeah, this one was good too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of depressing subject matter, the next story then is A Dog and His Boy.
Oh,
So, what were your feelings on this one?
I liked that they incorporated like a human into the story, and like there was more like Easter eggy type detective-y clues to getting to know what the deal was with this boy, and then that he developed a relationship with Ace, and that Ace is the one, like, you know, they go at night, they find him clothes, they make sure he's okay, they allow him to stay in the doghouse when he comes, like when he sleeps in the daytime, and because they can't read newspapers, they don't see that he's aware, like that he's potentially the person that's eating teenagers, because you know these dogs can't read. But it's right there in the newspaper for them to read if they could. But it's crazy because there's, again, Ace develops this really dog and his boy type relationship with the boy that they're housing, and then he finds out that he's a werewolf, and then he hurts him. Again, sad. But then he eats somebody right in front of him.
Crazy.
Yeah. And then Ace is just like conflicted, but also he's like, no, he's like, we're together on this. And they're just lying there bleeding in the snow. Oh, anyway, this was so tough.
It was this was one of the really well written ones for sure. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And this one has a different co-writer, right?
Let me see.
I think that's one of two that has a co-writer with Evan Dorkin.
Actually, Mike is right. That's one that he co-wrote with Sarah Dyer.
Oh.
So after that, we get into the series proper. Oh, and I should mention, this is also interesting because we actually developed something that will happen for the rest of the series with Ace actually achieving some sort of supernatural power after being attacked by the werewolf. And then we get into something that I thought was an interesting pick for the first official issue, The Gathering Storm, aka Giant Frogs.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Jolie.
Which wave of the apocalypse is that supposed to be?
I know it's one of the curses of Egypt.
It was one of the plagues of Egypt.
Yeah, that was again like it was good, but I like the more haunted stuff more. But it was still good though.
I wasn't crazy about it. It was just okay. It was like, all right. This was one of the ones I wanted more from it.
What was it about the story? Because I kind of get this feeling overall that you were disappointed with it. Was there anything in particular that was done or not done in the story that upset you or disappointed you about it?
Are you asking me?
It just didn't feel like it wrapped up well.
Yeah.
Like it's like I don't even remember how they defeated the big toad.
It was too easy. That's what it is. They bit his tongue off, and then the frogs all fell apart. And it's like, no, it was too easy. Like it needed. If they had connected it, maybe with the evil witch cat. What's her name?
Dimna.
Dimna, and maybe made it not as simple. Like it's like Phantom Menace style. They just all die, and now we don't have a problem. And it's like.
Yeah, it's like they used the monster to be like an identifier. Like, okay, for the wise ones, I think they're both present. The big shaggy dog and
shaggy dog.
What's her face?
And Miranda.
Miranda, that's it. The big black shaggy dog. So those two wise ones are like, okay, clearly some things are going awry in your neighborhood. So officially you are a supernatural group. Like this is where they dubbed them a supernatural group. And that's kind of, it kind of felt corporate to me. Because it's like, they end the big toad, and then they're like, then they have a big animal powwow, and then they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna get like the age old, oh, we better get home or we're all grounded. Like our owners are gonna wonder where we are, and Ace can't be out late because of what happened with the werewolf child. So like it just felt very a lot of the plot points that drove the story in this issue just felt kind of contrived.
Yeah.
They weren't
And
as strong.
no, I can understand that. Mike, was there anything you wanted to add about this particular chapter?
No, only that up until that point, it was my least favorite. And I didn't even think about it till you pointed out, but that was actually the first story of the regular series, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of surprising because it was not quite, it wasn't as strong as the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because it seems to be, in its own way, the origin of this group. And while they were together in the subsequent short stories, this was the one where they kind of had that official meeting where it was like the origin of the Justice League almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where this frog was their Starro. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess they needed something to galvanize them and keep them together, but
I think
they certainly
aliens
needed
would've been
somebody like the wise ones to allow the soul cat into the group.
mm-hmm.
They're like, oh yeah, you too, cat. You did good.
Now, I'm surprised because the next issue for me was one of the strongest in the entire series.
Yes.
That's the one featuring Hazel and the puppies. That one's called Lost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this was the one I thought we were talking about with Sleeping Dogs Lie.
Oh,
And
yes.
this one was my favorite. And like that final image with Hazel laying at the bottom of the river and all the bodies, and you just look closer and closer, and it's just like dawning horror of, oh my God.
Yeah, I think this is the best one. I thought it was really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it got dark too, in spite of some of the levity early on, where all the animals are coming to them with these really small, inconsequential problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think one dog said, I think they drink blood or something.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, they get possessed and they eviscerate a human.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Like, I mean, good for them because that human is a puppy killer.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't realize what's happening, you're like, oh God, oh God, oh God. And then they run away. Oh, anyway, it's just so heavy. Because even when they go back, when they get possessed, the three of them get possessed and run off. And then one of them is knocked out cold, and you're like, is he going to live?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then they chase after Hazel. Yeah, I think Hazel stays. Okay. So they're like, you know what happens when you break a circle, and like, we don't know what happens in this case, but apparently nothing bad. Nothing too, like, they didn't get sucked into a swirling vortex, thank God. But, like, they were able to summon the spirits they were so angry by a human who clearly had like a thing out for dogs and cats. Like, because I didn't understand this is the story that made me think that made me think about the storytelling and the dialogue together.
Really?
It's kind of messy.
Mm.
Because it's not super clear during the possession part, this page here,
Yeah.
what's happening. Like, you have to kind of read it a couple times.
That was weird. Yeah, like I had to go back. I was like, what's happening?
Yeah, like it takes 1, 2, and then 3 pages for them to get fully possessed and run off.
And I don't know about you guys, but I didn't realize right away, like when they went to go kill the one human, I didn't realize that they were killing the guy who did it. I thought they were just going on a murder rampage.
Yeah,
So when they killed him and then they came back, I was like, what's happening?
Because, like, I didn't immediately see all of the, serial killer, psychopath, freaking trophies in his closet. I didn't immediately see that, so I was like, dude, why did these puppies possess the beast of burden and go and kill a human?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Because all I did was oh look, they're trying to get out of there real fast, which they do because they're like, oh we're in shit. As far as us dogs are concerned, we're in big trouble. We killed a human, and I didn't get that there was a reason why that human died.
Yeah, did anyone else feel misdirected at all, or wasn't clear on what was happening in that sequence?
Yeah, like I said, I was like I had to kind of go back and go, oh, I see what's happening, but I don't know if it was because of the art or I don't know. I just thought, oh, maybe I just didn't read it properly.
I feel the page that I'm looking at, it's 113, and that's where we actually see the body inside the closet. And yeah, there are newspaper clippings inside there, like Jolie said, his weird serial killer trophy case. The thing is, sequentially, if there was a fourth panel here, maybe zooming in, paying to the articles, that would have given a better sense of communication to the audience what's happening here. I'll agree, the first time I read it, I was taken aback until I had to scour the background a little bit more for clues, and then I realized. But yeah, I do feel that was one misgiving with the art. There was a couple other sections that had something like that, but it felt like there was a panel or a sequence missing.
Yeah, and then towards the end, when they wrap it up, it's very clear that Hazel would rather be with her puppies. Like that was heartbreaking and emotional.
Oh,
I read this at work, and I had to kind of just like sit for a second.
Yeah, this was one where I was trying to like read them all in one sitting, but when I got to this, I had to stop for the night because it was too much for me.
Same. Yeah.
I don't know what it is about like when you give the emotions to animals, it's so much. Yeah, like by a billion. I don't know. You want to cry a little, but anyway.
Maybe it's the same way when children are imbued with having big emotional scenes in movies or books, because we look at animals or children as not deserving of having these emotions because they're so traumatic or so severe.
Yeah.
We want to protect them. There's this very nurturing, protective element that we feel for animals and children. And when in media like this, they're shown as being victims, or they're shown as being part of these really sad sequences, it just hits us that much harder because of that.
I agree. Ooh.
Effective dialogue in here too at the end, where I forget the name of the dog, but the Jack Russell Terrier says, "We messed up bad, didn't we, Ace?" Oh, and he says, "Yeah, Whitey, we did." And just that pan in the next sequence is just, it's really arresting.
Yeah.
Then we're going to go to the next story. My favorite title in the collection, because I love myself a pun.
Me too.
Weird, This Way Comes.
Yep. That's the best.
Was this the rat one?
This is the rat one.
The Buddy Cat Adventure.
Fun fact, the Rat King is actually a real thing. Like, rats get their tails stuck together, and they're like 100 rats together with their tails just stuck together, and it's just, oh my god, my skin crawls thinking about it.
How does that happen?
It's like
Lifestyle.
Lifestyle. It's
Product
like
of their lifestyle.
blood and like skin and just all kinds of stuff just like drying up and sticking them together, and usually what ends up happening is the rats will chew their tails off to escape. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking it up online. There's pictures of it. Ooh.
Yeah, I know.
Why did you do that to yourself?
And there's also
What?
An ROUS.
rodent of unusual size.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ta-da!
Yep.
He's cat-sized.
Where did this thing come from?
He's chanting Rat Kingdom, Rat Kingdom. Ooh, they're eating a cat too.
Gross.
Yeah.
What was your opinion on this story overall? Especially when we consider the gravity of the previous one This one's a little bit more lighthearted, but did you feel it was a lesser story because of that, or could you still appreciate it?
I appreciated it. Sorry,
I like
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I appreciated it. It was kind of in the realm of like your cheesy horror genre stuff. To me, it was a strange choice to follow the last one, or maybe it wasn't strange. Maybe we needed to lighten it up after the previous one, but I still liked it because I really like the witch cat character whose name I will never remember, even though you've said it like 3 times already.
It's not an easy name.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Dimfna,
Dimfna,
right?
yes.
Okay, all right.
No, I like this one because it focused on the 2 characters, and it gave you a chance to, because most of the time I was trying to figure out who's who and keep track of the different names, but in this one I could just focus on the 2 characters, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like when they say pugs, you know that they're talking about the pug. But it's like, Whitey. 3 of these dogs are white. Which one could it be? But yeah, I noticed that and enjoyed that as well. That it was just the orphan cat and Dimfna kind of getting to know each other, because she's technically like their best frenemy. Dimfna is, because she's. I mean, the last time you saw her, she was sicking zombie dogs on them. So yeah, now we got a reason for Orphan to try to like make a case for her as a good guy. So.
Yeah, her and Orphan are my favorites. I love them. Ace is my other favorite. Those are my 3 favorite characters.
My favorite is, what's the pug's name?
Pugsley.
I think it's Pugsley.
He's my favorite. There's always got to be like an asshole in every group, right?
Yeah.
It's a funny one.
My only complaint is, of course, it has to be the pug.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
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 Well, I have one more chapter to go through, and I'm going to admit, out of everything in this book, this was probably my least favorite, but I'm interested to hear your opinion on Grave Matters, aka Zombies and Golems.
This one was super weird.
Yeah, it was my least favorite, probably.
I'm going to put it on the same level as the frog one. Those 2 were both my least favorite.
Yeah, like the zombie human that comes back, that's not supposed to be our human friend from the Ace story, is it?
No,
that's what I thought. At first, that's what I thought, because he said, "I'm back." And I was like, oh my god, no, that poor boy. He suffered enough?
Yeah, right? But I was like, but I don't remember him having like Slayer patches and a jean jacket. That was, and like, bottle Jack Daniels, but...
Yeah, I love that he comes out of the grave with a full bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
I think this is, what's that magician's name? Chris Angel?
Yeah.
I was like, which one? Chris Angel. Mind freak.
Yeah. Even the art here, I don't think the art on the humans is necessarily the best in this series, but for this character in particular, is very, I don't mind distinct and exaggerated art, but there was something about this where he just felt out of place compared to the models of the golems and the animals. Mm-hmm. Did anyone else feel that?
Yeah. And it's like, I don't want to think that she was rushing this issue, but maybe she was, I don't know. I don't know why she would, but yeah, it just didn't look as creative or as, I don't know, as polished, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I almost want to make the argument that maybe she was trying to show how deranged this individual was by drawing him that way, but at the same time, I wonder if it was a conscious choice on the artist's part.
Yeah, especially when you go from a series which is periodically released to something that has a monthly schedule. Even the greatest of artists, unfortunately, will have to cut corners to meet schedules, especially if you have other books you're working on.
Right.
And I will say, of all the volume, this is probably the weakest for me in terms of the art as well. There's just something that seems very incohesive about it.
Do you mean this entire? Oh, this story, just this story. You mean?
Oh, well, I mean, compared to every other story that we've read in this collection,
Okay.
I feel there's even sequences. There's one near the end where Orphan is jumping around trying to avoid the giant Gestalt golem. And when they illustrate him, Jill Thompson illustrates him like a very different style. It doesn't even seem watercolor. It seems like a cartoon cat out of Garfield. I have it on digital page 162. I'm not sure if it would reflect that in a physical copy. It just seems really at odds compared to the art style throughout the rest of the volumes. Or sorry, the rest of the books in the volume.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. 162, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. You're right.
Is that the one there?
Yeah.
It's like they switched. It's like she switched mediums.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not great. Like you can see his little face here. It's just different than it usually is.
Yeah.
Well, it's a shame, but I guess this was also a change of direction where the book was going to have a more sequential type of story where it wasn't going to be standalone, but you're going to have an ad that's going to lead up to a larger confrontation. I haven't read the next volume, so I'm not sure. What's interesting to note is that the next release for Beast of Burden would be a crossover with Hellboy.
What?
Yep.
No.
I think I started getting it, but
and it's canon.
Yeah.
Also, I really want to point out that with this final chapter, so to speak, of the volume, you want to keep your reader interested. You want to keep them wanting more, right? This chapter did not make me want more. Like they could have maybe ended it before this one with the one with Dymphna and that, and I think I would have been really interested. Like, oh look, Scout and Dymphna are lying together, and she's going to be part of the group now, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. And so I think that would have been a better place to end it, because then I would have been really curious to see, okay, where's the group going to go now? What's going to happen? Where this one, I'm like, you know what? I don't need to read the next one. And that's not good.
Mm-mm.
No.
Going through it chapter by chapter, I think the quality kind of varies throughout the different segments of this collected work. But with that said, there is something consistent all the way through it. We're actually following animals instead of humans. We're following these anthropomorphized beasts. And I'm wondering if there was any particular method that you noticed that Jill Thompson was able to illustrate to indicate emotion or any sort of character traits of the animals, because you can't rely on human gestures or human facial expressions necessarily with animals in a comic.
Well, that's the thing. I think the only one that really has a lot of body language is Pugsley, which I think is sad, because at the end, her one condition for doing this book, it said, was that they include a pug in the main cast, and it's like, yeah, I feel like she short-shifted the other characters because of that, because you see Pugsley like lifting his paw and like doing motions and gestures with his paws, and the other ones you don't really see them doing that so much.
I would argue that he's probably the most anthropomorphized of all of the animals. Julie, as an artist, you probably know this us how difficult it may be to articulate human emotion through animals. Was there anything that you noticed that Thompson did that stood out for you for conveying emotion in the animals?
She gave them expressions. Their faces were very, very expressive. There's not really a difference in their. The bodies aren't over exaggerated, but it's their faces. I noticed, their eyes are wider. It's all in their faces. That's what I noticed that she did.
She does give some of them eyebrows too, now that you mention that.
I'm trying to find like a place where I remember that. But I just remember a lot of the cats having white eyes and like a lot of the.
Well, the other thing too is most of the animals are realistic, but the cat from the second story was really almost cartoonily proportioned. Did anyone notice that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was something different for sure. But it didn't really stick out like a sore thumb or anything. It was just when you look at it and study it, it's like, oh yeah, she's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to page 100 of the trade, there's a scene, I mentioned it before, where all the different dogs are going to the pack, talking about things they want them to investigate.
Yeah, I love that.
It was funny, it was great comedic relief, but it also pointed out a discrepancy for me. All the animals are illustrated very realistically. The way they're painted without any sort of anthropomorphization. But right below the final panel on that same page, you have the beast of burden, and they're given very human expressions with wider eyes, articulated eyebrows, facial expressions.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I think that's also around where I started to notice that, whereas at first I thought the art was a 10 out of 10, this is where I was like, okay, it's not a 10 out of 10, it's a 8 out of 10. Because like the underlying work is not masterful. It's itself, the colors, you know?
So I would say, and I think Jolie mentioned this, as an artist, as a painter, Jill Thompson is incredible. But when it comes to being a sequential artist, I already brought up some instances where I feel there's missing panels or the sequences don't quite connect. And that's one issue I have. I don't know if Thompson herself is to blame or if this is a miscommunication between her art and what Dorkin was doing for the script. It's possible either way, but that would be one critique I have of the book overall.
And you know what's funny is, I mean, this is like a greater discussion, but it seems like so many modern readers or maybe younger readers don't notice that or don't care. That's what I think, anyway.
Why do you think they not care?
Because it seems like, well, put it this way: the fact that Alex Ross is as universally loved as he is, and they even suggest that he's not the master of all comic book art, meets with violent resistance, right? I think that just proves that people are only looking at the surface, the realism, or you know, but I think that's also the same reason why a lot of people like CGI, but they can't watch an old movie with practical special effects.
No, I agree with you because I can remember a time where like there was a mix on television of 2D animation and 3D animation, and the 3D animation was awful. But then you'd have this 2D animated TV shows like SpongeBob, Over the Garden Wall, Adventure Time, Phineas and Ferb, like these beautifully rendered television shows. Oh no! These beautifully rendered 2D television shows, and you juxtapose it with the very early 3D television shows, and they were just ugly. They weren't nice looking, and I kind of agree with you there, Mike. I think we've really seen a departure of 2D animation is for kids, and everything has to be so hyper realistic. Like God, look at Lion King. Like look what they did to it.
Yeah, but and the funny thing is, there's a segment of the readership or viewership that just thinks it's self-evident that the new version of Lion King is so obviously better, and to even suggest otherwise makes it's like people are like baffled. Like they look at you like, how could you possibly think that the 2D version's better? And I'm not saying I've had that specific conversation about Lion King, but about so many other things where you just go like, do you understand? Like Chuck Jones, what's it called? The Grinch That Stole Christmas. You don't ever need to remake that. They remade it twice, and I'm sorry, but they're garbage compared to the original. Like, does anyone even understand what Chuck Jones was doing? I don't think they do, you know? But anyway,
I'd love to know, and unfortunately we'll never know, but I'd love it. I would have loved to have seen The Lion King come out as just this ridiculous, over the top, hyper realistic movie. Because without the original Lion King, I don't think it would have been as popular as it had been. Like, without the original Lion King, because there's a lot of stuff that just, if you don't have it in the back of your mind while you're watching this hyper realistic one, it really falls flat. Like, there's a moment even that they took out where Simba and Nala are in the elephant graveyard running from the hyenas, and Simba, like, Nala is sliding down the face of this cliff, and Simba turns back to scratch one of the hyenas across the face. That doesn't happen in this film. So at the end of the day, if you don't have the original animated one in the back of your mind, and you just watch this one without ever having watched the other one, Simba's an asshole. Like, he dragged Nala into danger, and then he just runs away and doesn't try to save her, where in the first one, his redeeming quality was that he tried to save her. Anyway, this is a really big rabbit hole that I've fallen down.
We could have a whole discussion just on this topic too. I will say, there's plenty of people from a younger generation, a younger demographic, who, for example, love the prequel trilogy for Star Wars. I don't know how I feel about that, but it's true.
Yeah.
So, that's their introduction. There's a little bit of nostalgic shades on, I'm sure. That's just the way it goes. When it comes to this and what Mike was saying, I do agree. I think because especially people in a medium like comic readers are so accustomed to the notion that this sequential information is told anyway, so we can fill in the gaps. It's kind of like someone reading a novel saying, well, you can omit some descriptive dialogue because people will get from point A to point B. Sometimes that works, and sometimes it's laziness. Sometimes it's just not actually giving accurate descriptions. When it comes to the form of this book and this medium, that's where I want to end off with our conversation. I don't know, in spite of the gorgeousness of the art at most points, did this need to be a graphic novel?
I would say yes, only because if it was just a book, it would be good, but it wouldn't be. I don't think I would read this if it was just a book. But the fact that the art is so rich, that makes me want to just look at the art. That's how I feel about it.
What if it was an animated film?
What if it was an animated film?
If it was 2D, yes. Or if it was like, what was that movie you showed us, Alicia? That Irish one?
Oh, Song of the Sea.
Like, it was something like that. But if it was just like Lion King, I'd be like, I have no need to watch this, Like the new Lion King, I mean.
If it was like Homeward Bound, yes. Like the original Homeward Bound.
Yeah, like actors.
It was originally a novel, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see this book having been extremely successful as just a novel with a few chapter header images here and there for maybe a younger audience. Because yes, I really feel this connection between this book and the Warrior books. I never read the Warrior books, but I mean, I feel like it's not a big stretch. Another one that comes to mind that could be considered very similar to this in style and theme is Watership Down.
Yes, very good example.
I mean, Watership Down probably has a graphic novel version of it by this point. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, it was originally a novel and it was so well done. I still reread it today and go, wow, I wish I had half that talent.
I will say, aside from maybe a page or two, there's nothing in this book that really stands out to me to say it had to be a graphic novel.
Yeah.
We always talk about what's this book doing unique to the medium. It didn't rely on the medium. It didn't rely necessarily on the use of sequential art. It didn't really rely on the idea of juxtaposing images or panels. I'm glad it was created because in spite of the few criticisms, I think this is a really good book. It's a lot of fun to read. It's a great Halloween read, but I just couldn't say that this needed to be a graphic novel. I think there were other mediums the same story could have been told in, and there was no use of sequential art necessarily that justified that this could only be a graphic novel.
You know,
But
another
that's
case
my
in
opinion.
point. Oh, sorry. Another
No, I
case
was saying
in
that's
point.
my opinion on it. Yeah.
Julie had mentioned earlier, like, who's Whitey? Like, there were so many dogs that had white fur that it's like, which one's Whitey? Where had it been just a novel, they could have had, you would have known exactly who Whitey was, because it would have just been Whitey talking, not this speech bubble floating over 3 dogs.
No, and that's a valid point.
That's the thing about when they were all together in a group scene and there was speech bubbles. So I was never, because I never knew what their names were, or it wasn't easy to remember which one's name was which. I also didn't know who was talking to who. So that was kind of, yeah. And I feel like it would have been, if it was just the way that if it was done successfully, written successfully, it would have been done better in a novel. I find it's always done better in a novel.
For me, though, I think we talked about this years ago in this graphic novel club, where one of the problems I have with novels is that sometimes they'll have characters talking and they don't even denote who is speaking. So I have no clue. I mean, I can figure it out usually, but that's like the only medium where, unless you put said Bill, then how do I know Bill's talking? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, and that's the mark of a great writer, in my opinion. A great writer can write dialogue well enough so that you can differentiate, oh, okay, this is the style of talking that this character uses and this character. Like, I've read so many novels where one chapter flips back and forth, like between the point of view, okay, this is from the point of view of the girl, now it's the point of view of the boy. And it sounds the same. And it's like, no, don't do that. Like, stop. So
that's a good point.
You probably haven't read good novels. No offense.
Well, I think I have, but
that will be the next discussion we have.
Like, I agree with Alicia. I find when I'm reading, like, I know when I'm reading crap because I can't hear voices. I can't see what's happening. And whenever I'm reading good novels, I devour them. It's like they're able to paint a picture, and it doesn't matter who's talking because I know exactly when they're talking and what their voices sound like and what their hair feels like blowing in the breeze in some cases. Like,
I agree.
Yeah. When it's a good novel, it's a good novel. And, you know, sometimes it may be a classic, but it doesn't mean it's always a good novel. So.
Yeah.
True.
100%.
Absolutely. With that said, we're at the end of the graphic novel discussion club already. Feels like hardly any time passed. I want to thank all of you for your great opinions on this. You know, in spite of the fact that it may not have been perfect, I had a lot of fun reading this, and it sounds like for the most part it was rather enjoyed by most of you. So avoid graveyards with spooky golems and witches' cats. And do you want to know what book we're going to be reading next?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're going to be reading a new release, something that just came out this year.
Not Untitled Chapter.
Spoils. No. I have my quota for cat books. This was it. Nope. We're going on to a book about British ice. That's the name of the comic. It's by Owen D. Palmery. It is a story about someone who goes out as part of the British High Commission to a remote Arctic island, which is still somehow under British rule, and about the confrontation he finds there living by himself and the confrontations he has with the native population.